My name is Grascher, and this is my story. I was born in Vienna, Austria. Both of my parents are Austrian, and if you're Austrian, you pretty much get skis strapped on your feet when you're walking. My dad worked for an American oil company, and so we moved around a lot. I was the middle child. I had two sisters. We moved to Germany when I was little. I lived in Germany till I was about 13. And then we moved to Paris, France, when my dad was transferred. That was a huge change in my life, going from, to a different school system, different language. If you were lucky enough to have lived in Paris as a young man, and then wherever you go for the rest of your life, it always stays with you because Paris is a movable feast. And I think that quote really kind of captures what it was like to grow up as a teenage boy in Paris, France, roaming the streets at midnight, going to cafes and bars, even, at 16, 17, that was pretty common. And so just when I was living this perfect life, my dad got transferred to Houston, Texas. And I always say, I moved from Paris, France to Paris, Texas. I had played rugby in France, and so Texas high school football is huge. So I thought I'm just gonna go out for the football team. And that was a real kind of an adjustment, but also made my transition much easier because I think sports is always, a great sort of cultural equalizer. And it was really like Friday Night Lights, like the story about, Texas high school football, like the whole culture around that. Instead of going to cafes and clubs, I bought a pair of cowboy boots and a denim shirt, and we'd go to Tin Hall, which is was a country western dance hall, and I learned how to two-step. So it was, it was an interesting change in my life. I really only had half a year in Texas before going to college, and I had a skiing scholarship to the University of Vermont. And my dad said, "There's no way, you're going to go skiing in college. You're going to become a ski bum." And so I ended up at the University of Texas. My dad started not really agreeing with the way I was living my life. I had a girlfriend, and instead of coming home on the weekends to play golf with him, I hung out with my girlfriend. And so at some point he said, "If that's how you want to live your life, go ahead, you're going to have to pay for it." And he cut me off. So I had to find a way to pay for school and support myself. And I moved into a trailer with a friend of mine from high school because I couldn't afford my apartment anymore. For the first time, I really kind of had that fear of not having enough money to pay my bills and to live. But my dad did get me a job on a pipeline barge in the Gulf of Mexico, which is sort of like an oil rig. It essentially lays pipe from the rig to land, and that was physically the hardest job I've ever had, and also mentally, because you basically worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. But I think what it taught me is that I definitely wanted to go back to school and finish my education because the lifestyle was just not something that I thought I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Sometimes the hard choices are really the good choices. My first career after business school was working with Unilever. I always wanted to know how to run a business. And I was a marketing manager at L'Oreal. And I was on a photo shoot with one of our spokesmodels, and it was like late at night. And I was kind of joking. I said, "Why are you working so hard? I know what we're paying you." And it was several $1 million a year. And she almost started crying. And she said, "Hannes, I lost a lot of money in some stupid investment that my boyfriend put me in." That really kind of shook me, kind of brought me back to my own moments of thinking about having enough money. And here I thought, here's somebody really successful, is in the cover of magazines, who's facing the same kind of fear. I reached out to a friend of mine from business school who was a lawyer, and we started digging a little bit. Make a long story short, we were able to get some of her money back. They all kind of ran in the same circle of friends, and she had other friends who were in the same situation. That gave me the idea. I said, there's a business model here. All these young entertainers or athletes or models who can be smart, who just have no experience in managing their finances, and a lot of times they're being taken advantage of. And that's, it's a common theme. We hear about it all the time about athletes going broke, 5 years after they finish their careers, etc. So I pitched that idea to I went to different financial firms, and Lehman Brothers basically said, hey, we think this is a good idea. They paid me a really good salary for 2 years. And that's sort of how I started in the business, then really switched careers. The day I started Lehman Brothers, I was served with divorce papers. My life changed, not just professionally, but also personally, and I think that was really hard, and I almost went back to my old job. I thought, there's no way I can change everything about my life, and I just said, going back is never a good idea. So I just said, I gotta push through. Yeah, I think most people who get divorced really feel that is a major life failure, and I felt the same way. At the same time, it also taught me to be really resilient. It enabled me to really spend a lot of time with my kids. They were young at the time, 5 and 2. And it just taught me how that making the hard choices is usually the right thing, because the payoff is much better than just always going the easy route. I think I would tell myself, don't be afraid to make the hard choices, because the payoff is bigger and the reward is bigger. Don't look at how successful other people are. Be true to yourself, follow your passion, and usually good things will happen. When my dad cut me off, certainly it felt incredibly unfair, but he lost his father when he was 13, and he worked in the coal mines when he was in college. I think he wanted to teach me that lesson of, hard work. I'm grateful to him for having done it, even though it didn't feel good at the time, but I think it really sort of set me up for success. That feeling of helping other people is really what drives me. I was in the World Financial Center on 9/11, and I had a pretty harrowing escape that day. There are several people on my train that died that day, and I remember walking the beach the week after it happened, and I think it filled me with incredible gratitude that I was able to see my kids grow up, and so I always felt like I had to give back in life. I had to help others because I was still around, and I felt that my life had a bigger purpose.